Hello everybody, I'm John, this is Strategic Investing, and today I want to go over my expectations for Xtract One's earnings coming up this Thursday, March 9th. And I want to go over basically kind of some of the things that I will be looking out for, some things that I think investors should be aware of, should be looking for in the report, and also some of the questions that I have, some of the questions I will be submitting for the earnings call, and why I think those questions will be helpful. So let's dive right into it here. The first thing that everybody should be aware of, because I think this might be a little confusing, is the MSG deal. The MSG deal went through after the end of the last quarter, after the end of the quarter that they will be reporting earnings for. That means this 8.4 million, that's the first tranche of that deal, will not show up in this earnings report. That means a couple things. One, it means we'll actually get to see exactly how low they got on cash in the last quarter, right? Because if the deal didn't go through, we're going to see exactly where their cash position was at the end of the quarter. That'll be interesting because, in a previous video, I did do some math. We were talking about exactly how they could do some cost cutting and different things to make it through the quarter with the low cash reserves that they did have. Obviously, now they do have that 8.4 million and pending a shareholder vote in April, another 5 million or so. But it'll be interesting to see, hopefully we do see a nice reduction in cash burn as well as a result of that. I very likely think that, as I said in that previous video, they were able to receive some of these receivables, maybe even this ITB funding, because that would be another $1 million there that they could add to their cash. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. The second thing that I want to go over is the growth trajectory, okay? Because remember, in the last earnings report, we had Karen and Peter both talking about expecting the trends that they saw in the last quarter to continue into fiscal 2023. And that could obviously mean two different things. We could be seeing the same dollar amount, right? The same unit growth quarter over quarter, or could be seeing the same percentage growth, right? And we map those out. Obviously, both of those situations are bullish with the rate of growth that we'd be seeing, but there's a pretty significant difference in the same dollar amount growth versus the same percentage growth, right? And so what you see here in this section, these Q1 numbers, these are actual numbers from their last report. And then as we go out here to Q4, this is modeling out the projected earnings through Q4. One, the top line using the same dollar amount increase, and then the bottom section here using the same percentage increase. Just so that all of you guys know, these are not where I think the company is going to go. These are not the earnings that I am necessarily expecting. I'm just modeling this out to give you guys an idea of what Peter and Karen were saying as far as expecting that growth to continue, what we would be looking at if they're talking about a similar dollar amount increase versus what we would be looking at if they're talking about the same percentage growth quarter over quarter. So you can see here at the bottom, it's actually a pretty significant difference as we move out further in time to Q4. Q2, it's going to be pretty close, so it's going to maybe be a little bit hard to kind of really nail down a trend Q1 to Q2. Obviously, also, it's a very small sample size, but it'll just be interesting to see what we see here. And it might help us determine, what we could be looking at Q3, Q4. Obviously, we hope that they give us, some extra guidance around that as well, give their thoughts on, really what they're seeing, maybe give us some extra information that can help us make some predictions as far as where they're going to go in the next quarter and so on, okay? So that's one of the things that I'll be looking at. Also, I mentioned this before, but really what I'm focusing on here, you guys can see, is the platform business, right? I'm looking at backlog, revenue, signed agreements pending, right? I'm kind of excluding really this just pure extract portion. If you guys are new to Xtract One, formerly Patriot One, the extract segment is actually a separate segment of the business. Their main focus, their main product line is under what they call the platform here. So that is kind of what I really focus on, and it's also what management is focusing on when they're giving out these earnings here. So just to let you guys know, that's why I'm kind of excluding this segment here, really just focusing on the platform business, okay? And the last thing here, just to get back to this MSG segment before I get into some of the questions that I will be asking, The second tranche, obviously, because there is another $5 million potentially pending a shareholder vote in April, I do think they're really going to address that. It's probably going to be one of the main focuses of the earnings call. Probably going to go over, Karen and Peter, why they think this is a good deal, why they think we should vote yes on the next 5 million. At least that's my opinion. That's what I think their opinion is going to be of that second tranche. And we will get to see, hopefully, some reasoning behind that, and hopefully maybe even some talk about purchases of the actual product from Madison Square Garden, because right now I think it's heavily implied. We all kind of are putting two and two together and saying, well, why make an investment this large if you don't like the product, if you're not going to be buying the product? But it would be nice to get some actual confirmation on that, formal announcement. Maybe that's tied to the second tranche. We'll just have to see. But hopefully we get some more information on that on the earnings call as well. Now, as far as questions that I have submitted for the earnings call, if you guys haven't already registered for that, you can do so on their website. And then you could submit questions for the earnings call prior to the call. They'll compile those and hopefully answer most of them. The first question that I submitted was how many or what percentage of the contracts that you're currently closing are contested contracts, right? Because this means, what percentage of the contracts are the customers actively evaluating other competitors' products. This will give us a nice idea of how Xtract One compares head to head, what percentage of these contracts they're actually beating out other competitors in order to get, rather than an uncontested contract. The next question that I asked was in relation to schools. I asked how many schools are currently using Xtract One to protect their school, or how many school districts, as well as what percentage of the qualified pipeline is made up of school-related customers. This will give us a nice idea as far as how well they're penetrating that particular market. I think a lot of people are focused on that market right now. There's obviously, a huge opportunity in that market. So just, thought I'd throw that one in there, see if we can get some extra information around schools. Another question that I asked was related to Oakview Group and Madison Square Garden. I asked whether or not Xtract One could be profitable simply from Oakview Group and Madison Square Garden venues alone. Now, I don't know if they're going to want to or can answer that question, but it would be interesting to know. I think it would give investors a whole lot of confidence if their answer to that question was yes. And I think also it would kind of give us some ideas because most likely those customers are getting a pretty significant discount on the product. And if they're able to still be profitable on those venues alone, even with that discount, that would be pretty huge. So again, maybe not going to get an answer to that one, but I think it was worth a shot to maybe get some information, some extra information around that. And the last question here that I want to talk about that I submitted here is whether or not the current client portfolio is fully referenceable for purposes of customer acquisition. And what I mean by that is, are they able to use all of their current customers as references when trying to acquire new customers? Are they able to say, hey, this is a list of all of the customers that we currently protect. These are people who have evaluated our product and who trust our product. Or are there certain ones that they even can't mention for those purposes, right? We know they can't mention some, whether it be through NDAs or the customer just prefers them not to use their name. Also on this topic, obviously I made some videos around Tesla. I'm pretty confident, obviously, that those images that we saw are the smart gateway, but I could be wrong, and I don't know necessarily if it's productive to ask about Tesla. Most likely, that's a customer that if they could have announced, they definitely would have because of just, for obvious reasons, right? So I don't know that they're really going to give us any information on that if we ask, and it's very likely that someone is going to ask that question. We'll see what they say, but I think this question kind of gets at some of what that question would be asking as far as whether or not they're able to use all of their current customers as references in order to get new customers. Because if they do have Tesla as a client, right, if I'm right about what I showed in those videos, that's a big one to put on the resume there. That's gonna probably have a large impact on future customers when they're looking at the current portfolio of Xtract One. If you see Tesla on there, that's a pretty big name to put on your resume there. So that kind of is a question that I'm trying to maybe get at some of that we might be able to get an answer to, rather than just directly asking, hey, do you guys have Tesla as a customer? So that's kind of my main take, my expectations on these earnings. Just to kind of quickly recap here. One, the MSG deal will not be a part of these earnings. We will not see that 8.4 million on the balance sheet, which means we'll get to see exactly how low they got on cash, and what sort of cost-cutting measures they were able to employ during the quarter. The other thing we should be looking at is their growth trajectory. We should be looking at, specifically, in my opinion, the platform growth trajectory, what we're looking at as far as backlog, as far as revenue, and as far as signed agreements pending installations or pilots. And then finally, looking to see what they do say about the second tranche of that MSG investment, what they say, if at all, hopefully around Madison Square Garden actually making some purchases of the product, and then obviously some answers to any of the questions that they're able to get to at the end of the call. So that is my main take on these earnings. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have any questions, or if you guys have any things you're specifically looking for in these earnings. And other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.